Good evening, guys. Okay, so let's start. So today, as you are all aware, we are going to talk about the personal interview and how to tackle a personal interview. Now, with the CAT scores out yesterday, I think all of you have a fairly good idea on the range of colleges and the type of colleges your scores are likely to fetch you, right? So now it's the time to start preparing for your interviews and the other related processes. Nakul, the e-lecture for banking will be loaded soon. Please keep a watch out for it. In the next couple of it, the banking lecture should be available on the YouTube channel. Okay, so as I was saying, your scores are out. You have a fair idea of the kind of colleges which will likely to be available to you for joining. I think it is the right time to start earnest preparation for your personal interviews. Right? So let's start. According to me, guys, the personal interview is the most critical phase of your selection process. Not only because of the weightage which most institutes attach to it, but because of the inherent difficulty which a personal interview involves. Okay, so first let me talk about the weightages. So ranging from the tier 1 institutes, where the institutes like the IIMs and even other allied institutes like the IIFT and the FMS, typically greater than 50% weightage of their entire selection process is attached to the processes coming up now. In other words, less than 50% of the weightage of most of tier 1 institutes are attached to the written CAT scores. Okay, so I'm sure some of you may not be aware of this. Some of you will be very surprised to hear this. But typically greater than 50% of the weightage of the selection process of tier 1 institutes is of the processes coming up from now. So which is the GD, the essays and the PIs. Okay, so that's one reason why the personal interview according to me is the most important, because it has a very heavy weightage and it is also, most institutes consider it to be the critical deciding factor whether to select or reject a candidate. The other reason why I feel personal interviews are very critical and very important to be really thorough with is because of the inherent difficulty. So guys, can somebody tell me why, according to me, personal interviews are inherently very difficult? Somebody can take a shot at this? Yes guys, I'm waiting for an answer. According to you, what are the most difficult part of a personal interview? So yes, Yogesh, nerves. Niti, you're right. They can ask you anything, and it's not just current affairs. They can ask you anything on the face of the earth. It is not just current affairs. It could be just about anything. One reason, of course, is that you are alone. The spotlight is completely on you, and whatever you do, good or bad, it's all you. You can't hide behind a group. You can't take hints or cues from a group. It's all you. So the spotlight is completely on you, and that brings the effect of nerves. So one reason is that. There is one more inherent reason why I feel personal interviews are very difficult. One more guess, please. Correct. So Rakesh and Nakul, you're right. Experienced, the interviewers are generally very experienced and you can't fool them, and neither is it advisable to fool them. But there's one more aspect of personal interviews which I want you to realize. Okay, let me just tell you what I am talking about. See, some of you would have already taken personal interviews at various stages in your life, whether it was for college admissions, whether it was at the time of campus placements. So most of you would have handled personal interviews at some time during your life. How many times do we come out of a personal interview and we realize, oh, I knew this answer. Oh, I should have said this instead of this. How many times do you come out of an interview and feel this way? Yes? That's the key. Because the trick in a personal interview, the skill in a personal interview is saying precisely the right thing, whereas our general tendency is to beat around the bush and give generic answers. So the idea, the most difficult part according to me in a personal interview is to come out with the precisely correct answer, a concise, crisp answer immediately as you are asked. So most of us, we prepared hard, we have all studied, we are all honest, hard-working young students. So there is no real differentiator there. The differentiator is in those 10 or 15 minutes when you are sitting across the table and your ability to give clear, concise, crisp answers during that 10-minute time frame. That's the differentiator. It's not in terms of preparation, it's not in terms of knowledge, it's not in terms of background as much. The real differentiator is what you do there during that time, because at the end of it, we all realize we could have done better, we could have given a much smarter answer. And we knew that answer. The answer was there. It is just the ability to produce it at that time. That, according to me, is the real difficult skill in an interview. Okay? And that's what we are going to try to achieve over the period of our preparation. Okay? So let's start talking about personal interviews. So personal interview, I'm sure you know the meaning. It's a face-to-face meeting. Generally, it is face-to-face. It could even be through electronic tools, where there's a panel and there's a candidate or even a set of candidates who are being assessed for the purpose of admission, right? Normally, in most colleges, there'll be 2 to 3 panelists. They could even be up to 4, 5 or 6 panelists. And normally, there's only one candidate, but it could even be a group admission process, a group interview. Some institutes take group interviews, so that is also possible. But normally, there are 2 to 3 panelists and a single candidate. Typical interview length ranges between 10 minutes to 45 minutes. Average time is generally 15 to 25 minutes per candidates. The IIMs normally have anywhere between 2 to 4 panelists. Okay. Weightages, like I said, the process going forward from now is about 50% or greater than 50%, but that includes the GD, the essay, and the interview. Interview standalone has 10 to 20% in most B schools. Okay. Most of the panelists will be professors, alumni, and even trained psychologists and industry experts. Okay. As I told you earlier, there is no fixed syllabus or set of topics that you can prepare for a PI. It is absolutely open house. You can be asked anything. You can be asked anything on the face of the earth. Right? Rakesh, GDs are still there in some of the institutes, but it is institute specific. You can go online and check out the exact process for each of the institutes. Okay. This is a very important slide, guys. This is what I want you to realize. Whereas all the tools, whether it was the written test or even the GD or even the essay, these tools are designed to be eliminators, where people not qualifying up to a certain standard are, even though directly not eliminated, they do appear for the next round, but their scores, when they are calculated, the totality is taken, these tools act as eliminators. Whereas PI, out of the entire set of tools, is the only selector tool. Okay? PI allows a panel to see candidates which fit the profile which they want coming to the institute. So it is a very important tool. It allows panels to select candidates rather than reject candidates. Okay? So it is the only selection tool out of all the tools in the selection process. Okay? So what can be asked? Well, like I said, just about anything. It could be about you. It could be about your environment. It could be your background. Actually, if you look at it, I'll try and divide the domain of an interview, even though like I said there are no limits. I'll try and divide the domain of an interview into some parts. Okay, so let me just try to do that. So typically your area of preparation should be divided in these parts. Okay, now what do I mean by these four parts? Now when I say past, okay, your past is your life so far. This includes your academics, this includes your hobbies, this includes your co-curricular and extracurricular activities, it includes any work experience you've had till date, it includes projects, internships, where you've lived, your family background, everything. So everything about you so far till date, I would qualify it in your past here. Okay, at the same time guys, you also need to be prepared about the present. So what is the present? Anybody can guess? What do I mean when I say present? What is this? No, when we talk about current work, I would say, even though yes, that is technically your present, but I would include in your past because it is something that you're already doing. Okay, but when I say present, I would say this means current affairs, your knowledge of your environment. So current affairs, general knowledge, international affairs, economics, politics, social happenings, all of this is your current affairs. This is what we mean by the present. Okay. And of course, when we say future, what are we talking about now? Absolutely, your goals. So goal statements, whether it is related to why MBA, what are your plans after MBA, where do you see yourself 2 years down the line, where do you see yourself 10 years down the line, what are your long-term plans in life, why did you do MBA after engineering, etc., etc. So all your questions related to your goals and what you are doing and why you are doing in life. All of this is the third area of preparation for you. And the fourth area of preparation is all miscellaneous questions, which will include why this institute, tell us about your role model. They could give you situations or problems right there during the interview, and then they'll ask you to solve those problems. So I would categorize all of these as miscellaneous questions. So broadly, there are four areas of preparation: your past, your present, which includes current affairs, general awareness, and the future, miscellaneous. So I have a question from Rakesh. Okay, so this question is related to what if you get a better institute. So sometimes panelists ask you, what if you get through a better institute, will you join us or them? See Rakesh, the answer to this question depends. Okay, so for example, you are sitting in the interview at IIM Calcutta and you are asked that what if you clear IIM Ahmedabad. Okay, so if the institutes are close in terms of their ranking, if the institutes are ranked closely, so somebody is number 1, somebody else is number 2 or number 3, then you can talk about saying, I would love to come to IIM Calcutta, sir, because IIM Calcutta is great at 1, 2, 3, these things. And you must be aware that what are the things that IIM Calcutta is known for. Okay, so then you can easily talk about IIM Calcutta and why you would love to go there. But in case there is a stark difference in the two institutes ranking, so suppose you have a call from, let us say, MDI Gurgaon and you're sitting there for the interview, and they ask you, what if you get through IIM Ahmedabad? Well, in that case, you would not say, I would still come to MDI. I would still advise you to be clear and crisp and say, I would go to IIM Ahmedabad. It is an institute that I would love to go to. But of course, MDI also has its own strengths, and then you still talk about the strengths of MDI. But don't deny the fact that you would leave IIM Ahmedabad for MDI. So don't say something which is clearly absurd. Okay? Does that answer your question, Rakesh? Okay, I have a few more questions. Let me take them up one by one. Okay, so I have a question from Shiv, which says that how much or what should you know about the institute you're getting interviewed for? Shiv, almost as much as the guys who started the institute, yeah. So please don't be under any misunderstanding that you have just got to browse the website of the institute before going there. You should Google the institute, you should check out the achievements, you should check out the specializations, you should know what type of companies generally come there for placement, what are the special recognitions, awards, or the things which that institute is known for. You should know a lot about the institute. You should be showing a lot of passion for the institute. Okay, so Shiv, it's not just website browsing that we are talking about. You should have in-depth knowledge of every institute you appear for. Okay. Ankit will talk about ethics. I will talk about that here when I talk about miscellaneous questions. So we will talk about this. It's a very important question, but we'll talk about it a little later. Simar is asking me the difference between MBA and PGDM. Well, Simar, MBA is a university recognized degree, whereas a PGDM is a diploma. It is not a degree. It is given by affiliated colleges, right? And factually they are pretty much the same. The difference comes in the institute's rating or the influence of the institute in the market when it comes to placement. But otherwise, in terms of technicality, in terms of quality of education, there's no real difference between a degree and a diploma when it comes to MBA. Okay, Simar, it's not between degree and diploma and getting a job. It's between institute to institute, which decides what kind of job you get. Okay. Okay, so let's start with our discussion again. So like I said, you could be asked about yourself, which is your past, your name, your hobbies, your interests, your strengths, your weaknesses, experiences, subject studied, career plan, everything. It could be your environment. This is your current affairs, your city, your state, your country, social, political environment, international affairs. All of these could be asked during the interview, and your goals as well. So when I say career plan in the first point, we are talking about your goals. Okay. So any of these could be asked. Now let's start off these one by one. I think it would be fair to say that for most of you, the most important component to prepare over the next month or 2 months is your academics. Frankly, it is the largest portion of your life so far. Okay? It is the portion of your life which you spend maximum time in. So you go 4 hours, or ideally you should have gone 4 to 5 hours to college in a day, and then should have spent some time studying. There's not too much else to discuss in your life so far, isn't it? So a lot of your questions, especially for freshers, are likely to be from academics. And when I say academics, I am specifically talking about your graduation. Okay? Yes, Pratmesh, unfortunately that is true. Good academics do have specific weightages also, and during the interview they will also play a role in terms of your ability to answer questions, because a large part of your questions are likely to be academic based. So Pratmesh, directly and indirectly both, your academics are likely to play a very important role in your selection process. Okay, so people who are freshers and even people with less than 1 year of experience are considered almost freshers. It is very important to be very strong and familiar with your graduation academics. So please start revising starting from first year, second year, third year, fourth year. Your graduation academic should be pretty clear to you by the end of the month or by the time your process comes around. Okay. So Abhishek, what about engineering students? There are engineering panelists. You will have panelists, faculty members at all the institutes who are from engineering background. Please don't be under any misapprehension that it's an MBA interview. You'll only be asked management questions. Not at all, my friend. You will be asked questions from quantum mechanics also, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, yeah. So if you have experience of greater than 1 year, going on towards 2 years, going on towards 3 years, proportionately the number of questions coming from academics goes down and the number of questions coming in from your job goes up. But you still can't completely rule out your academics. Even at 2.5 years experience, you still need to have one favorite subject which you are fairly well versed with. So you must have one favorite subject which you are familiar with quite well. So Abhishek, does that answer your question? Questions from your job will be there, but still at least one subject you should be fairly well prepared on, even after 2.5 years of experience. Ganesh, physiotherapy, why not? Yeah, you can be asked questions from physiotherapy. We can ask questions, we've asked students questions from homeopathy backgrounds also, yeah. Absolutely, why not? So no background is out of bounds. So please don't be scared. You need to revise your subjects absolutely strongly. Piyush, what you pick as your favorite subject is absolutely your choice. The only point then is that you need to be prepared in depth on whatever favorite subject that you're going to talk about. You need to be very well prepared on your favorite subject. Okay. So yes, what I'm trying to say is all your courses you need to be reasonably well aware. So if you have had 10 or 12 courses during the past 3 years, you need to be reasonably well aware about all of them, and there needs to be at least one favorite subject where you can talk about in depth. Absolutely no question about it. Okay. Rakesh, asking question is simple, so they can ask anything. Absolutely. See, the idea is very simple, yeah. These guys are experienced. When they're asking a question, even if they're not from the same background, for example, I am a commerce graduate. Today I can ask questions to computer science engineers. I can ask questions to people from mechanical background, electrical background. I can ask questions to any engineer today. It's not an issue. And even though I may not be in-depth aware about the answers, I'll have a fair idea when you give the answer as to how correct your answer is. I'll have a fair idea. Okay. So yeah, that's the other thing. Okay. So that's the other thing. Let me come to your questions one by one. The other thing is that in addition to knowledge about your courses on your favorite subject, you must also understand the practical applications and current affairs on that subject. So for example, you're a mechanical engineer. I could ask you about automobile technology in India today. Okay. Or if you're a civil sciences engineer, if it's your civil engineering is your field, I could talk you about certain famous buildings in India and the engineering involved over there. So current affairs, general awareness related to your favorite subject could become a topic of the interview. Right? So even chemical engineering, Ankita, why not? Yeah. We can talk about the latest developments in the field of chemical engineering globally. Sure. We can talk about the Nobel laureates in the field of chemical engineering. Commerce students, everything, Minervi. You're sitting in an MBA interview. They can ask you from economics, politics, management. Commerce students, there's no escape. Okay, so let me just take some of the questions which have come up. See, Rishabh, the point is very simple, yeah. Rishabh has asked me a question saying that if we mention our favorite subject not related to management, won't they think why are you coming to MBA? See, Rishabh, look at it this way, yeah. See, an interview is not a process to embarrass you or to make you look stupid. It is a process to check your presence of mind, your intelligence, your skill sets, and therefore, even if this is asked, the idea is to correlate. Okay, even if they ask you, okay, you don't have, let's say you say quantum physics is my favorite subject. Fine, but then why you're coming to MBA? So I have every right to ask you that. You have to tell me why. So you could say, yes, so far, thanks to my graduation field, quantum physics has been my favorite subject. But at the same time, thanks to these set of experiences or these set of learnings of my life, I believe I am management inclined. So you have to say, yes, this is my favorite subject so far, but there's a reason why management interests me, why I am coming to the management domain. So it is my right to ask you a question. It doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong. It just means, please tell me why you're doing what you're doing is right. So you have to defend that. Does that answer your question, Rishabh? Yes, Minervi, if you don't know the answer, well, two things here. First, if you prepare well enough, like I said, you all have a month and a half, so about 30 to 45 days for all of you. If you prepare well enough, chances are that out of every 10 questions, you'll know about 7 or 8, which is fine. You can always say you don't know the answer to a couple of questions. But if you don't know the answer to 8 questions or 6 questions out of 10, that's a problem. I'm sure you'll agree. So the idea is, don't let that become a problem. Start preparing. Interview preparation takes a lot of dedication. Okay? So Minervi, you will not know some things always. You'll never know everything. But that should not be 20% or more than 20% of the questions asked. Okay? So let's see what else is there. Yeah, so engineering plus MBA, I'll come to that. I'll come to that, Rishabh, when I talk about goals. Let me first address, so Pratmesh has asked me engineering plus MBA. I'll come to that when we talk about your career goals. Okay, so what else is there? Hina, you can be asked anything of your graduation field, but and you should have a reasonable amount of knowledge from any of the subjects of your graduation field, but generally they will ask you what subject are you most comfortable with, and then they ask you really deep questions on that. Most interviews work that way. Okay, so they will give you the opportunity to talk about what you love to talk about. Okay, but you still need to be reasonably prepared about all the subjects from your graduation. Okay, so that's about the subjects, Hina. Okay, Shiv, about the specialization again, please remind me this question when we talk about your career goals. We'll talk about it at that time. Ganesh, why MBA? Again, we'll talk about it when we talk about goals. Rakesh, the diplomatic method of saying that we don't know something is by smiling and saying, I'm not aware of this. There's no other diplomatic method. Please be very open, please be honest. They'll appreciate honesty. If you try and waste their time by scratching about, by trying to build a nonsense answer, they'll feel offended, they'll get irritated, and they'll say, okay, thank you, bye-bye. So Rakesh, please don't be diplomatic, please be honest. But having said that, please prepare very hard, diligently, so that this comes very little or just once or twice during the interview. This should not happen too often during the interview. Okay? But there's no need to beat about the bush. Okay. So do I stress upon my skills? Yes, Ganesh, we do that. And I will tell you how you do that when I talk about your strengths in a couple of minutes. Okay, so that's about your academics, guys. Why I stress so much on academics is I feel that it's the most important area in the next 1 month. See, in the next 1 month, you all have to now use your time very judiciously. You have to divide your day into compartments and say, every day in the morning or whatever time that suits you, I'm going to spend 2 hours brushing up on my current affairs. So reading newspapers, magazines, journals, yearbooks, whatever you want to do, you need to brush up your current affairs a lot, 2 hours a day to that. Another 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day, depending on your, your freshness, allot to your academics. Similarly, allot some time to your classes. If you're taking classes at your centers, wherever you're going, practicing GDs, practicing essays, practicing mock interviews, allot a few hours to that on a daily basis. So please be very, very smart. You don't have unlimited time. You need to judiciously use your time every day. Okay? So you need to be very smart. Academics are going to take a majority of your time in the next 1 month. Okay? So that's the reason I spend so much time on academics. Then there are other things from your background, so which could include things like, tell me the meaning of your name. Must be aware of this. You must know the context, and then they might follow it up with, why does this meaning suit your personality, or are you in person like the meaning of your name? So you need to have a fairly good answer built to this, right? They can ask you these things. They can ask you about your favorite hobbies, and I'm sure all of you have a favorite hobby. All of you would have some things that you love doing, but the one thing that I would advise you is have very good familiarity with your hobby. So if you say my hobby is swimming, or if you say my hobby is listening to music, it's not really good enough. It's not a great answer. I would rather say my hobby is listening to alternate metal, or especially this genre by these 4 or 5 singers. So please be very specific about your hobby, because your knowledge requirement on your hobby will be very high. They will ask you questions very deeply on your favorite hobby. Okay? If no constructive hobby, Taran, well, you must have some interest, some things you like to spend your time in. Gain more knowledge about that field in the next 1 month. It could even be something as simple as spending time on Facebook. But then you should know everything about Facebook. You should know how Facebook was started. You should know how Facebook earns money. You should know the different business verticals within Facebook. You should know the domains Facebook is planning to enter into the future. You should know the financial history of Facebook. You should have complete knowledge of your hobby, guys. Poetry will be absolutely fine, Yogesh. It's fine. But then be ready to face knowledge based questions on poetry. Rajiv, it need not be something you do. It could be listening to music, it could be reading books, it could be something constructive, it need not be. Maybe something, even Taran, if you're saying, let's say outdoor, spending time outdoor with friends, you need to show some passion, you need to show value it adds to your life, and you need to show how you have developed as a person with this hobby. So even that will be fine. Playing snooker, sure Ankit, I can talk about snooker all day. If you want to, we can talk about the world championships, the different champions in India, worldwide, abroad, over the years. We can talk about the different formats of snooker, Ankit, but you need to know all these things then. Clubbing, Taran, I'm not too sure. They might think it is frivolous. So please, something which sounds frivolous, please avoid. Okay, painting, Ashima, is perfectly fine. Then you should have a fair knowledge on the different types of painting, the different types of Indian artists, the scenario of Indian paintings, and you should also know about painting history in general. Okay, so that's absolutely fine. So if you're talking about reading books, then I would rather say talk about a particular genre. Don't just say reading as a hobby. Talk about a particular genre, and within that genre, a particular number of authors as your favorite hobby, not reading. It sounds a very generic, a very average student statement. I would not advise you to do it. Again, coming back to my starting point, need to be very concise, precise, and clear with what you say. Okay. Minervi, reading self-help books is okay, but you need to show how that has helped you, why do you do it, and what do you gain out of it. Okay, so how it has built your character or your nature. So sure, that's also fine. So any questions on hobbies, guys? Or any other questions so far? Rishabh, you need not be a great player. So if you say my hobby is playing cricket, as an interest and I love knowing cricket knowledge, but then your cricket knowledge should be exceptional, right? So they will not obviously try to test you during the interview on your playing skills, but they might test your knowledge over there. So for example, Rishabh, do you know the 11 ways to get out in a cricket? So somebody is batting, what are the 11 ways to get out here? There are 11 ways in all. Hina, I'll just come to extracurriculars after this. Rakesh, when we talk about hobbies, you will talk about your current hobbies. You need not talk about at age 6 I had this hobby, at age 12 I had this hobby. It's about your current hobbies that they are talking about. Ramil, there are 11 actually. Check out ICC's code of conduct here. There are 11 ways to get out in a field of cricket, in a game of cricket. Chale, any other questions so far? Can we move on to strengths and weaknesses? Okay, so strengths and weaknesses. Let me first talk about weaknesses. Now, this is something that my opinion is generally contradictory to the opinion of some other teachers, professors that you will encounter. Even pagalguy.com has a different set of opinions on this. Normally, some teachers, professors will tell you that you must showcase a weakness which is actually a disguised strength, which is actually something which is a good thing, but portray it as a weakness. Well, I think it is complete nonsense. I think the panel is not a fool. I've had students coming up to me and telling me, I work so hard that I don't give time to my family. I feel like slapping the guy and throwing him out of the room. So guys, please appreciate that the panel has some experience, is sitting there for a few years. I would rather be honest about my weaknesses, but at the same time, I will talk about my weaknesses in 3 different lights. So I will tell the panel, getting angry, for example, is my weakness. I get angry quite a lot. It takes very little to tick me off. For example, number 1. Number 2, I will have an example ready of how this weakness has hurt me during the past and preferably in the recent past. And number 3, I will also tell the panel what am I doing, what are the constructive activities I have undertaken to overcome this weakness. Okay, so I will not just tell the panel my weakness honestly. I will do that. I will honestly tell the panel my weakness, but in addition to that, I will be ready with an example of how that weakness has hurt me, how it has professionally or during my projects or during my college time, there's some problem that has occurred because of my weakness, and what I am doing to overcome this weakness. So the panel generally likes you to be honest, number 1, and it also likes you to be self-aware and then working upon that. Of course, let's be honest, nobody is God. So I think it is always important to understand that you have weaknesses, appreciate them and then work on them. I would rather appreciate a student doing that rather than telling me that I'm so honest, I'm so hardworking that I have no time for my family. That's nonsense. Okay, so please be ready with 1, and if really pushed hard, you can talk about a second weakness. So if you tell one weakness and you explain the example and then you talk about what you're doing and the panel says, tell me one more. You can always say, sir, I only remember 1 at this scale, at this point, and I am not able to recall any more right now. But if you're really pushed, have 1 more weakness ready, again with an example and again with what you're doing to overcome it. So please be honest about your weaknesses. Please tell them and please be ready with examples and overcoming plans. Okay, so that is about your weaknesses. In fact, some of you might even at this stage be thinking, but I don't know. I'm not aware of my weakness. Is that the case, guys? Does anybody think that? I am not honestly aware of what are my weaknesses. Do you feel that way? So all of you are aware of your weaknesses? Real weaknesses, I mean. Okay, very good. Well, in that case, so yes, Ankit, not good at public speaking is a great weakness, yeah. Not all of us come from convent educated backgrounds, not all of us have been doing debates and declamations, so we may not be great at public speaking, but then the point is, what are you doing about it? So when did you realize this and what are you doing about it? These will be important questions in the interview. Okay, so Ankit, if you can handle that, that will be great. Ganesh, some weaknesses, if not handled properly, if you are not able to justify that, so I'm not a good public speaker since class 10. Whenever I go on stage, I have stage fright. But then since the last 4, 5, 6 years, I've done nothing about it, then it's a problem. But if you say that I have been working on in this way, these are the courses I've taken, this is what I've done, no weakness is negative. No weakness can give you negative marks. Every weakness is positive if you are working upon it. If you show an action plan. Okay. And guys, for those of you who think that I don't know my weakness, go back to your family, go back to your mom, she'll give you an A4 size sheet and she'll say, boy, these are your weaknesses. Right? So talk to your parents, talk to your family members, they'll be your best guides. Okay? That is why I'm saying, Minervi, I know that Pagal Guy and some professors talk about hiding your weaknesses. I don't agree with them. I think the panel is an experienced panel. It would not be possible to fool them. You would instead end up being the fool. The fool would be you. They'll find out you're bluffing and they'll screw your happiness right there and then. Minervi, there's another point here. See, when you bluff or when you hide something and instead make up something, when they ask you the next question to go into detail, then you'll start stammering. Then you'll be like, that will be the problem. The panel will realize you have bluffed. That's where you'll get stuck. Right? So please don't do it. That's my advice. Okay, so that's about weaknesses. Similarly for strengths, you must have 3, 4, 5 strengths which you are ready with. Again, I would appreciate honesty, and I'm sure all of you are good at something. All of you will have your strong points. All of you will have talk to your best friends, talk to people who are close to you. They'll tell you what are the things that you're really good at doing. Okay? So once you know those things, just list them down. Think of examples where they have helped you in your life recently. And if required, you must have about 3 or 4 strengths ready. Okay? So that is how strengths play out. The strength must be ready, the example must be ready. Yes, any queries, guys? Vikram, basic question, why panel wants to know about true weakness? Vikram, the panel would not like you to lie about anything, yeah. It's not just weaknesses. I would not advise you to bluff about anything during the interview. If the panel finds out you are bluffing, the panel will say, I don't know whether this person fits in my college, yeah. So the panel will not trust you. The panel will say, okay, bye. So it's not just weaknesses. I would say don't bluff on anything. There are ways to say the truth. We will talk about how you can give or tell the truth in a way that it looks presentable. So we'll talk about presentation skills. We'll talk about how you can portray things by still telling the truth. So that's what we'll do. Okay. Okay, let me just address the other queries and we'll move on. So Minervi, if you say you are indecisive, you can always support that by saying what you are doing to become more decisive. So you can always say, while I was in graduation, these are the instances where being indecisive really hurt me or harmed my progress. That's possible. But then you always come up and saying, these are the activities, these are the sets of courses, these are the set of things that I'm doing to become more decisive. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, yeah. Okay, Ganesh, I'll just come to when we exhibit a strength. I'll come to that. So, Simar, if you are asked how you prepared for the exam, well, I would not advise you to talk about coaching classes. I would rather advise you to talk about the different areas of preparation. So, in the sense, talk about how you prepared for the verbal part, talk about how you prepared for the quant part, and then you can tell them that these are the things which you did to prepare for verbal, quant, DI, etc. Don't just mention that you went to coaching classes. That's fine. You can skip that part out. But talk about how you prepared for verbal, how you prepared for quant, how you prepared for DI. Okay, talk about the time you put in, talk about the activities you did. You talk about those things. And again, you're not lying. You're not bluffing. You actually did those things. Okay, let me just see. Vikram, that doesn't happen here. If they know your true weakness, they will compare candidates based on weaknesses. How can you say one weakness is worse than the other? Yeah, is there a weakness rating scale? Is it mathematics? Doesn't work that way. Yeah, everybody has weaknesses. Nobody is God. So everybody has their own weaknesses. All weaknesses are workable. You can improve on them. The only differentiator is who's working on them and who's not. Everybody has weaknesses. So being optimistic, being hardworking, being honest, being diligent, being persevering are all fine strengths, Ankit. The only thing is, can you come up with a realistic example of how it has helped you? Okay, so Ankit, any of these is fine. So Rakesh, indecisive, that I just explained, doesn't mean that you still are. It's a weakness that you have recognized. It's a weakness that you're working on. And taking a decision to do MBA is a part of your decisiveness, which is a growing skill, which is something that you are overcoming your weakness. How is that wrong? Or how is that sound bad? Sadhvi, if you have a gap, that will definitely be a problem in your interview. I suggest don't have a gap. Instead, I suggest you should have spent your time doing something constructive like a job or even a part-time job or an activity related to ISEC, Rotract, anything. If you have not done that so far, I would immediately suggest you join an NGO, do some part-time activities so that you can build some knowledge of what you have done. Nobody looks at a complete gap and says you need this for preparation. None of the faculty members, none of the panelists will feel justified in that. They will not agree to your dropping a year for the purpose of preparation. So please join some activity. Please join it now. Okay, let me just take up the rest of your questions. So Simar, again talking about your preparation for the exam, don't just simplify it by saying I took online tests here. Again, be very logical and your answer should come out in a flow that you divided your time in a set of compartments. Let's say you said that I want to prepare, you tested yourself against a previous CAT and you realized that your verbal was weaker than your quant and you allocated a daily allocation of 3 hours to your verbal. What are the set of activities you did on those 3 hours every day? What are the set of activities you did for your quant practice every day? What are the set of things that you did for your DI every day? Has to be a very logical set of answer here. Just saying I did online tests, so boring, so simple, doesn't sound like a student who's coming to an MBA interview, no? Come out with a very concrete set of steps that you followed. Okay? So please be very clear and smart about building an answer. Okay, let me just quickly come up with the rest of the answers to the queries. I'll come to your extracurriculars, guys. Give me a minute. See, Ganesh, working as an NGO, I wouldn't say that's a hobby. It is an interest, it can be a passion, but a hobby is something you do on your own. It's an individual task. Working somewhere, I don't know how you can call that a hobby here. So I wouldn't qualify that as a hobby. Sanchit, engineering to MBA, we'll talk about it in goals. Please wait. Srishti, if you say that you never lie, you are adding an extremity to your statement. And statements and extremes are always easier to trap. They might give you situations, they might ask you questions right there and then, and that's going to be a problem. So instead, I would prefer you say, I generally like not to lie. Okay? And again, I don't think that's a very big strength. I don't think it sounds like a very big strength. You need to think of strengths a little deeper. Again, like I said, talk to your close friends, talk to your family members. They'll help you identifying what is the good things that you do. Okay. So Balkesh, now you'll have to talk to a faculty member, maybe wherever you are in your center, and tell him the reasons why you resigned, what you did after resigning, and then they will help you construct how to justify this. The gap is definitely a problem, but we can find ways on how to present it. So that will happen only in a face-to-face interaction with a faculty at your center. Okay, so Balkesh, somebody can help you design your answer individually. Okay. Okay, so let me just come to the rest of the queries. Vikram, palmistry could be a hobby. Yes, absolutely. In fact, it could be a very interesting hobby. It could be such a hobby where the entire interview, all 15 minutes or 20 minutes is spent on this. And if you are well prepared, you will ace the interview. Right? So, could be a very strongly attractive hobby. Right? So, fine. That's a hobby. Fine. So, yes, Ganesh, you can talk about working in NGOs. In fact, social welfare would be a passion. Right, so you can talk about social welfare being a passion, and working in an NGO is a way to live your passion. So yes, you can talk about social welfare as a passion. Yeah, so Abhishek, if the gap is created by the waiting for the call for the company, then it's not an issue. Then it's fine. Piyush, I didn't understand your question. If you could clarify what you're asking me. Build a charitable society. What do you mean build a charitable society? No, Vikram, if you are a part-time or just like Shaukiya palm reader, then don't say it as a hobby. Or again and again I'm saying hobby is something where you are deeply knowledgeable. You should know about the major palmists in the country. You should know about palmistry as a field of knowledge, how it began, how it has developed. You should know about palm reading yourself. You should know about the technicalities. You should know about are there any regulations or laws governing palmistry. You should be deeply knowledgeable about your hobby, Vikram. So just saying that I am doing it off and on will not work. Yeah, doesn't sound proper. No. So if you want to say palmistry, please be ready for everything. So Sadhvi, what is your question here? Could you just repeat your question? Okay, so you're doing CA and you're talking about how to justify that. I'll come to that in your goals. Please ask me again when we talk about goals. So Piyush, if you talk about setting up an NGO, I don't think there's any problem. It's a good enough activity that you've done. I think you've used your time well. Please talk about it. Please talk about your passion for social welfare. It's good. No problem. Ganesh, why would you like to talk about your civil service prelims? Yeah, I mean, is there a need to talk about it? Why don't you omit that totally? Again, Hina, I will talk about campus placement versus MBA when I talk about goals. Yes, Sadhvi, what is your question then? Yes, Piyush, why not? Yeah, people spend years in NGOs. Yeah, so why not? Why can't you spend 8 or 9 months in building an NGO and then doing a set of activities for social welfare? It is a great activities to do. Yeah, no problem. See, the idea, guys, is, and this is a generic comment for every type of question. Okay, for all of you. When you are talking, no, the panelist is nobody to question what you have done in your life, or what your hobbies are, or what your nature is like, or what your weaknesses and strengths are. The panelist is nobody to question you on anything about your life. It is your life, you have lived it. But the point is how you talk about your life. Are you confident? Are you knowledgeable? Are you passionate? If you have these traits when you talk, he will be convinced. But if you are self-doubting, if you stammer, if you think, or you look for redemption and you ask, or you're actually just asking the interviewer, am I saying the right answer? If you're looking at him that way, he will be like, you have done nothing. So the point is, whatever you have done, whatever you are talking about, be knowledgeable, be confident, be passionate, everything is all right. Okay? So knowledge, confidence, passion, very important in every minute of your interview. Okay? So please remember those things. Okay, let's come to any other question left, guys. So you, of course, Pratik, you will be asked about your family business. Yeah, if you've had experience in your family business, I'll ask you about the industry. I'll ask you about your suppliers. I'll ask you about your buyers. I'll talk to you about government relations in your regulations in your industry. I'll ask you everything. Yeah, I'll ask you about what you did, the IT infrastructure which you use in your company. I'll ask you about labor laws in your company. You can, we can talk about anything. Yeah. Balkesh, no. The simple answer is no. Like I said, if your work experience is greater than 1 year, going on to 2 and 3 years, less percentage of the time will be spent on academics. There's no way to completely avoid it. Ankit, when they ask you what are you most criticized for, they are talking about your weaknesses or the areas which you need to improve. Yes. So Abhishek, if your work experience is not related to your field, that happens. It's normal. Engineers generally end up in totally different assignments when they work after their engineering. So that's okay, that's fine. Again, it's the passion, it's the commitment, it's the confidence which you display about your engineering and about your job, which will either get you through or not get you through. So it's not a problem. In itself, it's not a problem. Okay, yeah. So if your questions are done, we can come to the next part. Okay, just let me see this question. Academic achievements is any achievements, Pratmesh, related to academics. So it could be a seminar on your field or your subject. So in that you achieve first prize. Whereas extracurriculars are domains outside your academics. Still in college, so you organized a fest, for example. So that's an extracurricular. But if it's a academic related conference, that's an academic achievement. So if you have a gap of 2 years after your +2 because of a medical condition, see, the point is very simple. Talk about it if you're asked about it. So if you're asked, don't hide it. Talk about the seriousness of your medical condition and why it took actually 2 years. and they'll be able to judge whether your condition or your problem was justified in taking 2 years or not. So if they ask you, please talk about it, don't hide it, but if they don't talk about it, you should not initiate it. Okay, that's the way it should be approached. Okay, civil services. Okay, Ganesh, so you're asking me this question directly, or you want to ask me whether if this is asked to you in an interview? I didn't understand your question, Ganesh. So Sadhvi, like I said, please don't hide your CA because it is an additional qualification, but you will have to build an answer with your faculty at your center on how to present this. So I don't think you need to hide your CA intermediate, but you need to be able to present this well, which a faculty can sit with you one-on-one and build with you. So in case you want to come to Chandigarh, I don't know where you are right now, but wherever your center is, please go to the center, ask the faculty, they'll help you build this answer. Okay. Vikram, probably the gap after +2 will not come up, but again, if they do ask you, don't talk about it as a gap. I would advise you to talk about something that you have actually done or which you can talk about having done. Okay. So anything that you were doing, maybe taking tuitions, maybe doing some voluntary work, anything which you did, please talk about it at that time over there like that. But don't need to open your mouth directly yourself. Don't volunteer this information. Okay. Ganesh, again, so civil service preparation, if you are asked, talk about it. Otherwise, it is always preferable not to confuse them with your goals. Talk to them about some other activity which you have done. If you haven't, if there's no other option, then only talk about civil services. Otherwise, it is always better to talk about some other activity which you are doing in this time. So Abhishek, we'll talk about this when we talk about goals, yeah. Why you would leave your job and do an MBA. We'll talk about this when we do your goals part of it. Ankit, no, rank 6300 is not an academic achievement, yeah. No, it's not. There are 6,299 people who have a better academic achievement than you, which is not a great number, right? So Sahil, yes, if you say your family business, you better be prepared about your family business. I have no problem with that. So to help some of you with your academic achievements, you can instead, so let's say you are in a class of 100 students and you got, let's say 70% marks during your graduation. Okay. But instead you can talk about percentiles or you can talk about fractions. So you can say that I was in the top 20% of my class, or you can say I was in the top 1/10 or top 10% of my class or 1/3 of my class. So mention it that way where it looks presentable and you don't actually come off as saying that I am 20th out of 100. So 20th is not a great rank. But if you say 20% of my class, it certainly sounds a lot better. So that is what I said. Presentation, faculty can help you. Okay, so that is what we will do. Abhishek, again, rank of 400 out of how many? Again, 71% out of how many? What was the percentile like? Again, they'll ask you what is the percentile or how many students were above you. So international level is okay, Abhishek, but out of how many, yeah? So then in case you don't have that, then I mean, there's no way to you can justify as an achievement, no? You don't know how many were below you and how many were, there in all. So you can't say it's an achievement. Yeah, class or branch or, whatever you want to talk about in your university or even all branches, how you can sugarcoat it. Basically, I'm talking about the truth in a presentable way. Okay. So that's how you need to talk to your faculty. That's why they'll tell you that, in your branch, how many were there, in your stream, how many were there. They'll talk about all those things and help you make it very presentable. Okay. So good, you can talk about Minervi, your merit certificate. That's a good one. That's absolutely fine. You can talk about it. So academic achievements are those. Extracurricular achievements will be ones related to non-academics from your college. That's also something which they will talk about. And I'm telling you, I read a query some time back where somebody said I have no extracurriculars. I don't think that's possible. If you've lived and breathed, breathed in college, you would have done something. Yeah, you would have participated in fests. You would have organized something. You would have brought sponsorships. You would have done some activities. You just need to go back and scratch your brains and remember it. Yeah. All of you would have done some things during your college. I'm sure you would not have stayed at home the entire time. So please go back, think, and try and recall what all you did. So extracurriculars, sure, Rajiv, that can be worked out. Yeah, but that's in extracurriculars. No, if you don't have certificates, that's fine. But you specify there that I don't have certificates on this, but I did it. And Ganesh, the point is, during the interview, it's not the certificates which matter so much. The panel will be able to, through the discussion, understand whether you are lying or whether you are talking the truth. Through your discussion, through your knowledge, they'll be able to judge that. Okay, and then of course you have current affairs, which basically is everything and anything related to the environment around you. So it could be, let's say you are from Jalandhar. So tell me 5 things which Jalandhar is known for. Tell me how Jalandhar was established. Tell me who laid the foundation stone. Tell me the history of Jalandhar. Tell me the major battles fought in your city. Tell me the major industrialists or the major industries which are known in your city today. It could be anything related to your city. Taran, why do you need to escape from these questions? Yeah, you can't. You have to answer these questions. Shiv, achievements will always be from graduation, not beyond that. So Abhishek, they'll talk about basketball as, for example, I could ask you about the state of basketball in India. I could talk about the facts, statistics related to the game. I could talk about basketball in India, major championships, the status. Let's say I can ask you a problem saying that how, if you were made the sports minister and given a task on making basketball the number 2 game in India after cricket, what are the actionable steps that you would do? I could ask you a lot of things, yeah. Fine. Yeah, Minervi, that's fine, but you are living in Panchkula since how long? Well, that's fine. You should know a fair bit about Panchkula. Yeah. You should know the mayor. You should know the local representative, the MLA. You should know the history. You should know the civic architecture of Panchkula. You should know a fair bit. Yeah. You should know the major industries in Panchkula. You should know these things. Yes, Taran, that is why we are saying you need to prepare very well for interviews. Yeah, they could ask you deeper and deeper questions. No escape. Yeah, so that is about the city. They can ask you similar questions on your state. So how to make Punjab drug free? They can give you a problem like that. So if you are made the minister of the Punjab government, chief minister, how would you make? Give me 5 actionable steps how you would make Punjab drug free. You could talk about the financial budget of the government of Punjab. They can ask you the incomes and expenses of the government of Punjab. They can ask you about your country. So economics, politics, social and cultural. So they can ask you about the violence against women. What are you, according to you, what are the reasons why it is happening? What are the things that can be done? They can talk about corruption. They can talk about other agendas like, for example, communalism. A lot of communist factors are growing these days. So they can talk about your country. They can talk about international affairs. So India-China relations, WTO. They could talk about Europe. They could talk about Japan. They could talk about the US. Any current affairs, guys. So again, please, this is one area you need to dedicate a lot of time. You need to dedicate a lot of time to your academics, your brushing up of your graduation subjects. You need to dedicate a lot of times to your current affairs knowledge also. This is not something that we can teach. It is only something that if you bring to us as a doubt, we can clarify. But the study of this is for yourself to do. Only you can do it. Okay? And the third area, Minervi, the first step is always difficult, yeah. The water always looks cold outside the pool. Once you take your first step inside the pool, you will shiver. But once you get in the pool, no, you will be fine. So please start preparing. You will slowly and slowly find that it is not so difficult as you thought. Okay. If you remember, the third thing we talked about is the future. This is your goals. Now, in my opinion, this is the most frustrating area for me while taking an interview, because this is an area where students are least prepared. Okay, this is an area which I am asking you about you, your career plans, your goals, what you want to do in life, and students are most unsure about this area. So the first message which I want to give you is that it's your life. Please be very crisp and clear about it. A panelist is nobody to question your goals. A panelist can only question the surety of your goals. If you sound unsure, if you come across as if you think you have done something wrong in your life, or if you are not sure of what you're going to do in your life, that's the problem. So a panelist will always judge you on those things. I'm sure you guys know that about 70 to 80% of people who end up getting admissions in the top institutes are engineers. Then why do you ask me engineering plus MBA, how do I defend that? They take 80% engineers, yeah. There must be some reason, no? They don't reject engineers. They are taking 80% engineers. So being an engineer and then saying I want to do MBA in itself is not a problem. It's a problem if your face shows it is a problem. If you are able to say, sir, I've done my engineering in this field, I've got the knowledge, and look, these are the skills which I have gained, which I have developed, which I feel now make me fit to be a management graduate. Nobody can question you on that. Nobody can say, no, you are not good for MBA. They'll only check your confidence, your passion, your commitment. That's all. So guys, again, how you present your answer to your goals, you can only discuss one-on-one. All of you come from different backgrounds, have different sets of experiences. So again, you'll have to sit with a faculty member at your centers and build an answer to this. But more important than the answer is the presentation of the answer. So confidence, commitment, clarity, passion. You show these things, no panel in the world can say you are wrong or your goal is wrong. And the second part, I hope you can realize with what I'm saying, I can't give you a blanket answer that this is what you must say, what I'll be doing 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, this is why I did MBA after engineering. You can't give blanket answers to this. Each and every one of you will have their own individual answer to this. Okay? So please prepare these answers and understand you have to deliver them very strongly. Okay? Sometimes the panel will stress you. Okay? Sometimes the panel will stress you and will ask, no, you are wrong. No, I don't think you are fit for MBA. But please understand, at that time he is only trying to test your resolve. He is only trying to test whether you'll start shaking, stammering, get frustrated, get angry. He is testing your strength of commitment. So if you smile, if you tell him that I feel this is the best for me at this moment and I have justified my answer with reasons, he will be okay. Right? So he's just testing you by telling you you are wrong. Okay? So Rajiv, to answer your question, if they talk about a specialization, if you are from a commerce background, okay, it makes sense because you can already understand what the different specializations entailed. You have seen marketing, you have seen finance, you have seen IT, you have seen manufacturing operations, so you know about these specializations. But if somebody is from an engineering background or a non-commerce background, you can always answer saying that the first year at most MBA colleges is a general year where all subjects are introduced to you, and it's only at the end of the first year that you have to pick a specialization. So you say that you will have your mind open, you have management skills that you've recognized, you would love to do MBA, that is something that you're sure of, but you would keep your options open, and once you experience all the subjects, you will pick a specialization. That's the way to answer this question. So entrepreneurship, Ganesh, fine, but then there are many specialized entrepreneurship courses. They'll ask you, why don't you join those? Fine. So somewhere you'll have to justify. I'm not saying your answer is wrong, but you'll have to justify why not an entrepreneurship course. Many institutes run specialized entrepreneurship courses. So you'll have to justify why you're not taking up those courses. Okay. Okay, Minervi, why MBA? Yeah, you're right. It's the most basic question. But this will have to be answered in two different ways. Okay. The first is what you bring to the table. Okay. In the sense, through your experiences, through your, organizing fests, through your events that have happened during college, through your experiences in working in teams, there would be some management skills that you have picked up and that you have enjoyed and seen. You can talk about those as the seed. That my seed of an interest in management came from there. So you need to talk about your specific experiences as the seed where management inclination came to you. Okay? And you talk about the skills which you have identified in yourself. So one part of this answer is what you bring to the table. So guys, the question that I'm answering is why MBA? So each one of you has to put this answer in two contexts. The first is what you bring to the table, those set of skills that you have picked up from your experiences related to management. The second part of this answer is what attracts you in management. So you talk about the job profiles, you talk about the growth rates, you talk about the organizational structure and where you see yourself fitting in an organization, how you see yourself contributing. So what attracts you in an MBA? These are the two parts of this answer. What skills you bring to the table and how you develop those skills, and what attracts you in MBA. You need to give both these answers within why MBA. Okay. Similar, the difference between IIM and IIMI interviews, at this stage, I don't think you need to worry about that. At this stage, I suggest you rather spend your time concentrating on areas of preparation. The areas of preparation are the same. So it is your academics, your background, your current affairs, as well as your goals. You need to think about all of these things. So Sadhvi, if they talk about why you did CA or why you doing your CA right now and also doing MBA, again, like I said, there's no need to hide this. You need to be able to present this. Okay, so again, you have to sit with your faculty. You need to understand the faculty. You need to tell them your current position, and you need to tell them your own motivations on what you see as your career path. They will help you present the answer. Okay, so it has to be done individually with each one of you. Could even be examples, Ganesh. You're absolutely right. So examples which have inspired you from the management field can also be part of the answer in why MBA. Absolutely. Ganesh, everybody is going there for the money, yeah. I'm sure all of you are. So the money, the placements, yes, that's an answer, but we need to be a little more professional in our presentation. We need to talk about career profiles. We need to talk about professional growth paths, and that automatically reflects money and placement. But we need to talk about in the sense of career paths and growth profiles. Okay. So the message here is, guys, that in your past, in this area, the most important area of preparation is your academics. Here it's your current affairs, and for this you need to sit with your faculty and present answers related to your goals. Okay, so this is what you need to do. There will be always some FAQs which are asked in interviews. These FAQs so these FAQs are, for example, introduce yourself. Okay, let me just first look at your queries and then I'll come to the FAQs. Okay, Shiv, I will just come to this next. Ankit, but that can also be translated as saying you're running away from your current job. Yeah. So running away from something and doing MBA is never a good answer. Instead, it should be why MBA is the right thing for you. So your answer should have positivity, not negativity. So by saying that you want to change something means that you're running away. It's not a great answer. Instead, be positive and say what better MBA offers you. Okay. Okay, so Shiv asks me, if the panel says tell me about yourself or introduce yourself, it's generally the first question in most interviews. It's the most frequently asked question. It is a question that must always be ready with all of you. Okay. An introduce yourself question needs to be well prepared, well thought of, well practiced before you enter the room. Okay. An introduce yourself question, typically when you practice it, when you prepare it, needs to be the size of a single side A4 size sheet. So one A4 size sheet, one side of that should be the answer to this question. This answer could go chronologically or reverse chronologically, which means you can start with the earliest part. My name is so and so. I was born in this city, and then you can move forward chronologically, going from your schooling to your +2 to your graduation to your current status. Or it could be reverse chronological, currently what you are doing, going backwards. Okay, it could be either of these ways. The third is if you have achieved something great in your life, if you are a national level player of something, or if you are an all India achiever of some sort, you can start off with that headline achievement and then work below that, highlighting your character or highlighting your nature, your strength. So these are the three ways to write your introduction. You can go it reverse chronologically, or if you have something very spectacular in your profile, you can talk about that first, and the rest of the answer will be linked to your strength qualities. Okay, these are the three ways to answer this question, but you need to build it, you need to talk about it with your faculty, and need to be practiced with this. Hina, if you have a campus placement offer and you are appearing for an MBA interview, you need to justify why MBA is better for you. And if you do that, if you're able to do that, why MBA is the right choice for you, then it is not negative, it will not work against you. Yeah, that's right. If you are asked, then start this discussion. Otherwise, no need to yourself come up and say, I was having this campus placement, but I'm leaving it for your institute. No need to volunteer that. No, Simmer, that is not required. Yeah, that is there in your, so they will have a form with your details that will be there on that. In case you are asked specifically, you can answer, but don't put it in your introduce yourself answer. Okay. What do you mean, Balkesh? See, statement of purpose is pretty much saying why do you want to join our institute and why do you want to do MBA. It's a combination of these two questions. So when you have your goal questions cleared, when you talk to your faculty and you build your questions answers to your goal, you will automatically be able to combine them, club them and have an SOP. So what do you mean SOP requirements? Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. No, so SOPs need to be made well, but they will flow out of your two kind of goals. The first is why MBA, and the second is why this institute. So whichever institute that you're filling the SOP for, you'll have to answer why MBA and why their institute within the SOP. Graduation percentage can be told, Ganesh. If you have a great graduation percentage, mention it as an academic achievement. Otherwise, let them talk about it in case it is not so great. So, Rakesh, if you have an all India position or if it's something that you achieved out of thousands of people or lakhs of people, only then, and then you have to connect it to a character strength or a skill set, and the entire introduce yourself answer needs to flow from that. Okay. So state level is not something you can talk about in academic achievements, but it need not be something which you start or introduce yourself with. Not something which is so strong. So Sanchit, yeah, so if you're applying for a specific stream, you need to talk about why or where that interest of that stream has come. You need to talk about your interest in HR, how it has developed, why do you think you are fit for HR. You need to have these answers ready. Absolutely. Sure, Ganesh, you can talk about your experience as a physiotherapist. Yes, absolutely. No, Shiv, unless specifically asked, every institute, once they give you a call, they will have a set of requirements which you have to bring for the interview. Unless specifically asked, you don't need to take your medals and certis. You can keep your certis in a bag, but probably you will not be asked to show them during the interview. Right? Balkesh, some institutes ask to mail the SOPs beforehand and some institutes ask you to carry the form during the interviews. Depends on institute to institute. So Rajiv, if you are from a non-commerce background, not deciding a specialization is absolutely fine here. Yes guys, any other questions so far? Ankit, when we talk about role models, it could be role models in terms of their qualifications, absolutely. And it could also be role models in terms of character, nature or skill sets. In both cases, the role model becomes a role model because of his set of achievements. So you need to have somebody who is an achiever, and then you can talk about his qualification being a reason for his achievement or his skill sets as a reason for his achievement, and then you can talk about that correspondingly. So you can say that I admire Mr. Sachin Bansal, who's the co-founder of Flipkart, and he's a qualified MBA from so and so institute and blah blah blah. You can talk about his achievements and his skill sets, or you can talk about, let's say, Dhirubhai Ambani also, who's not an MBA, who was not an MBA, but he still had certain skill sets and you admire him, he's your role model. It could be either ways. Rakesh, obviously the dress code for an interview is completely formal, well shaved, well groomed, hair in place. You need to have your nails cut, well trimmed. You need to have polished shoes, a clean dress. This is a given. Formal shades of the blazer and the shirt. The shirt is light blue or white with a tie, a blazer which is dark blue or black with a matching pant. All of these are a given. You can talk about your father as the role model, Taran. You can talk about his achievements in life, and you can talk about the skill sets which made him achieve those things. Sure, you can talk about your parents. So Ganesh, if you have worked as a physiotherapist, you must have done some activities to attract clients. You can talk about those as your seed for trying to go for marketing. So you can talk about your marketing activities that you've done as a physiotherapist. Shiv, they will not have much weightage. Okay, so you can bring them up, but it will be a little redundant because it's too long ago and I don't think it will have too much weightage. Okay, so you could, it will not be anything negative, but it will not be a great positive also. So Minerva, it could be anybody. Yeah. It could be a freedom fighter, it could be from corporate world, it could be from humanities, social welfare, it could be your parents. Anybody you need to justify their achievements and the reason for those achievements. So whether it was their qualification or their skill sets, you need to talk about that. Okay. Yes guys, so the takeaway from today's session so far is the areas which you need to prepare. I have tried to identify. So I have identified that the areas you need to prepare are broadly these. You need to prepare your academics and you need to spend a lot of time there. You need to prepare your current affairs. Again, a lot of time will go into there. And you need to sit with your mentors or your faculty at your centers to talk about questions related to your goals. This is just an introductory class to give you a feel that a lot needs to be done. You need to start working, but at the same time, it is not something which should scare you. It's very doable. We've done it every year. We do it every year. You need to start working. Okay, so please start working along these lines and we'll continue chatting up soon. Any other questions? See, Shiv, resources, I would suggest you need to search for FAQs on interviews, but broadly, I suggest the most important time of your day will be spent in academics and current affairs only. So you need to go through these two things immediately first up. So yes, you could, so like I said, in miscellaneous questions, you can be given situation-based questions, and there you can be asked about incidents of your life, where you failed, where you've succeeded, where it has changed your life. You can be asked any such questions. These are questions which we will prepare as we go along, but these are some things which will relatively take lesser time. Okay, most important are your academics and your current affairs. Nishal, what do you mean startup related questions? What do you mean? Yeah, so if you are talking about entrepreneurship as a career goal, they will ask you why, they will ask you what kind of entrepreneurship, and they will ask you why you are not doing an entrepreneurship course. So you need to be ready with those answers, but I would advise that only under exceptional circumstances you should talk about entrepreneurship. For most of the students, I wouldn't talk about entrepreneurship as a career goal from the interview perspective. Okay, but it's an exceptional case. This will have to be discussed sitting with you one-on-one. Okay guys, thank you.